Now, from your local source, TV 20 News at 6 in high definition.
Good evening. It's back to the drawing board for the Gainesville City Commission. Having been denied possible new tax money for transit projects, city leaders today voted to appeal to the Alachua County Commission for help in other ways.
The County Commission is ready to place a proposal on the ballot asking voters for a 3/4 cent sales tax to pay for road repairs. But city leaders had also been counting on a 1/4 cent tax proposal for transit projects that will not make the ballot at this point. So city commissioners voted to ask the County Commission to reconsider the distribution of money from the surviving tax proposal so that Gainesville would receive a greater share. They also voted to ask the county to allow them to use that money for transit and sidewalk projects.
Meanwhile, Alachua County officials have come up with some new codes if you would like to have more than 2 chickens on your property. Officials say if you live in the Jonesville area and certain areas of the county, you're only allowed to have 2 chickens, but that doesn't apply to rural and agricultural areas. Well, the county is now looking at changing those codes for residents to have up to 6 hens, but you cannot have a rooster. The possible new codes is making some residents happy. Tonight, we'll hear from one of them. The pastor of Dove World Outreach Center is back with another controversial demonstration, and this time it's aimed at President Obama. Displayed for residents in northwest Gainesville, it's a life-size effigy of President Obama hanging from a noose, along with a baby doll, Uncle Sam, and a Koran. Pastor Terry Jones says the message behind this display is to show that President Obama, in his eyes, is not working for America after his support for recent controversial issues. Jones is now on his way to the Washington, D.C. area for a protest. Coming up tonight on your news at 11, we'll ask residents what they think about this display.
Developing tonight, a stalemate between the state and federal government could end in court as Florida leaders defy federal orders to stop cleaning up its voter rolls. People around north central Florida have been affected by the purge this election year. Marion County had the names of 6 non-voters flagged, but were all later cleared. Alachua County had 4 names. 1 has been cleared, 1 is in the process of being cleared, and 2 have not responded. Levy, Gilchrist, and Dixie counties all had no names flagged. Columbia County Supervisor of Elections did not return our repeated phone calls. Capitol correspondent Whitney Ray spoke one-on-one with Florida's chief elections officer to find out why he's not budging.
What you find is
thumbing his nose at a federal order to stop removing illegally registered voters from the voting rolls, Secretary of State Ken Dotson says Florida is well within its rights.
The supervisors, just like myself, have a legal responsibility to ensure that their voter rolls are clean and that persons that do vote are eligible to vote.
The U.S. Department of Justice gave the state a Wednesday deadline to stop the purge. Dotson responded with this letter defying the order and once again requesting use of a Department of Homeland Security immigration database.
That is probably the best database that we have in the country to determine whether somebody is a citizen or not.
The feds say the state's efforts are illegal because Florida hosts a primary in August, and it's illegal to remove voters from the rolls within 90 days of a federal election. The state identified more than 3,000 voters that might be registered illegally. Caught in the mix were legal voters, some of them war heroes.
In many instances, the individuals responded by demonstrating that they were, in fact, citizens.
Ron Lebaski, an attorney for Florida's Supervisors of Elections, says most of his clients stopped the voter purge last Friday. Does this feud between the state and the federal government even matter?
Well, no. I think the supervisors have that authority to determine the quality of someone's registration.
Dotson says the DHS database would keep the state from misidentifying voters, and he's willing to fight for access, even if it means taking the feds to court. In Tallahassee, Whitney Ray, TV 20 News.
A report written by DHS officials about the purpose of its immigration database says it's, quote, for any legal purpose, such as background investigations and voter registration. That's why Dotson says he's puzzled the feds won't make it available to him.
Time now to take a first look at the weather. This is definitely not a day to be caught outdoors without your umbrella.
Chief Meteorologist Bill Quinn is here to show us what it's like outside, Bill.
You know, we've had lots of your photos coming in, so I try to increase the amount that we can show you. Here is viewer photos times 3. This is from Beth from Archer. The lambs trying to escape the rainfall, and you can see As you look at the turkeys, a lot of little hens there. You can see Ed from Gainesville sent that one in. And Day at the Beach, Richard from Sitton. That's not Richard, but that's his dog, I'm sure. So we are expecting to see a little bit more heavy rainfall continuing across the region. So what we are going to see is as that rain begins to pull on in, it has produced some flooding rainfall back up to the north. That's the biggest problem right now as you look along Suwannee County and Columbia County line. That's where we have the biggest threat for severe weather for this evening. We'll have more than that. Look at the radar, wider view in just a few minutes.
A month-long investigation comes to an end with 2 men behind bars. The Gainesville-Alachua County Drug Task Force received a tip regarding drugs being sold in the Lochloosa area. Search warrants were handed out today in Lochloosa and Hawthorne. As a result, Brad Ross and Nathan Castles were arrested. Ross is charged with trafficking oxycodone, and Castles was charged with the sale of a controlled substance.
This has been going on for years, but it's been difficult to get in this rather remote area without them knowing that our drug folks were going to be heading in there. So the culmination of the arrest today really feels good.
The Gainesville-Alachua County Drug Task Force is made up of numerous law enforcement agencies and it encourages citizens to call in suspicious activity. Our developing story tonight, prosecutors turned to cell phone evidence today in the Seth Jackson murder trial. Co-defendants Amber Wright and Kyle Hooper are accused of luring Jackson to his death. TV 20's Lisa Nouri is here tonight to tell us much of the evidence presented today centered on a defendant who's not yet on trial.
Multiple witnesses from law enforcement were called to testify in the Wright-Hooper case today. The 2 teens faced life in prison, but it was their association with another accused killer that took the center stage today. Most of today's witnesses were from the Marion County Sheriff's Office. One deputy testified about examining cell phones that once belonged to Wright and Hooper.
We believe they had knowledge of the crime, ultimately that became defendants, suspects and defendants.
Michael Dodd, a Marion County detective, also testified. He was the one to find and look through Wright's text messages on her cell phone. He also looked over Hooper's phone.
One photograph that Detective Stroop identified as possibly case relevant was of Michael Bargo holding a gun.
Michael Bargo is believed to be the mastermind of the killing. He has not yet been tried. His co-defendants, however, watched as Detective Bobby LeVay took the stand. He says he helped locate Michael Bargo and found what he believes to be incriminating evidence.
This is a gun box for a Heritage .22 caliber revolver that I located underneath Michael Bargo's bed.
Perhaps the most revealing part of the evidence presented today lies with crime scene detective Kathleen Schmidt. She collected blood samples and described detailed pictures of the home.
This includes swabs of suspected blood in the kitchen, on the overhead light and on the ceiling. I used a hydrated sterile swab, the same type of swab that we use for taking DNA standards. I used sterile water to hydrate the swab and then rub it over the suspected blood.
Now, the crime scene is the home of 19-year-old Charlie Ali, who already has been sentenced to life behind bars. For now, defense attorneys are trying to deflect all of their blame to Michael Bargo, who has not yet gone to trial. The Wright-Hooper trial will continue tomorrow. Lisa Nouri, TV 20 News.
The Florida Supreme Court says an Ocala judge will be reprimanded for habitual tardiness, but not for making a religious comment in court. The justices ordered Circuit Judge William Singbush to appear before the High Court for his reprimand, but did not immediately set a date. In April, Singbush signed a stipulation agreement agreeing to the penalty recommended by an investigative panel. Investigators found he was often late for court and took lengthy cigarette breaks. The Florida Judicial Qualifications Commission panel decided that Singbush should not be penalized, though, for making an intemperate religious comment in court because it was an isolated incident.
It's summer break for Alachua County students, but that doesn't mean the meals are coming to an end. Alachua County Public Schools Food and Nutrition Services will continue to offer free breakfast and lunches during the summer. The free meals are offered at 27 schools across the county. The idea is to make sure no child goes hungry.
Alachua County is 51% free and reduced, so we have some families that are needing some assistance, and so it's important that we have programs in the summer as well as during the school year so that we can feed children that are hungry.
For a complete list of the schools offering free lunches, go to our website, WCJB.com.
Well, if you're itching to buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack, well, it's just about within reach at the new baseball stadium in Newberry. The highly anticipated project is nearing completion.
And when we come back, we'll take a look at how city leaders are already taking advantage of the situation. This is your news at 6.